The early morning sun spilled gold over the streets of Roseville, casting long, sleepy shadows along the hospital sidewalk. The day was just beginning, but the city's largest general hospital was already humming with activity. Ambulances came and went, nurses in scrubs rushed in and out, and family members gathered around entrance benches sipping cheap vending machine coffee. Among the rush, Jake Miller was navigating his way toward the hospital entrance with a grocery bag in one hand and his son-Noah's small hand in the other. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed from restless nights, his shirt slightly wrinkled, and his mind lost in a list of worries. Life as a single father wasn't easy. Ever since his wife's sudden passing 3 years ago in a car accident, Jake had been doing everything: father, mother, cook, driver, comforter, all rolled into one. Still, he never let Noah feel the weight he carried. "Are we going to see Grandma June?" Noah asked, his voice soft and curious. Jake smiled faintly. "No, buddy, just dropping off some meds for Miss Clara. She's got that old heart of hers acting up again." They were halfway to the door when Jake's steps froze. Just a few feet ahead, slumped against the brick wall of the hospital, was a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. Her hair was tangled, her bare feet dusty, and her yellow dress was torn at the hem. At first, she looked like she might be asleep, curled up with her knees drawn to her chest. But something about the way her body was tilted, too limp, too still, triggered alarm bells in Jake's chest. Then, in a blink, she collapsed completely, toppling sideways onto the cold concrete without a sound. "Dad, that girl!" Noah shouted, tugging his father's hand. Jake dropped the paper grocery bag instantly, eggs shattering at his feet as he sprinted forward and knelt beside the girl. Hey, sweetheart. Can you hear me?" he said, gently tapping her shoulder. Her skin was ice cold, her lips pale, with a slight bluish tinge. Jake leaned in, trying to hear her breathing, faint, shallow, barely there. He turned toward the hospital doors and yelled, "Nurse! We need help out here, now." 2 nurses and a security guard rushed out seconds later, one of them wheeling a stretcher. Jake stepped back to give them space as they quickly began checking her vitals and lifting her small body onto the stretcher. "She's severely dehydrated," one nurse muttered. "No visible injuries, but malnourished. Might be hypoglycemic." They rolled her inside without another word, disappearing into the emergency wing. Jake stood frozen on the sidewalk for a long moment, his heart racing. Noah clutched his father's arm and looked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "Is she gonna be okay?" Jake didn't answer right away. He was still processing what just happened. "I hope so," he said finally. Inside the lobby, the air was cold, sterile, and buzzing with quiet tension. Jake gave a statement to the nurse at the desk while Noah sat in a corner chair, silently hugging his backpack. She was alone, Jake told the nurse. No one around her, no shoes, no bag, nothing. The nurse nodded slowly. "We'll check for a missing persons report. For now, Child Protective Services will have to step in once she's stable. Thank you for calling for help. Most people just walk by, you know." Jake looked out the window, where the grocery bag still sat on the ground, eggs leaking into the sidewalk cracks. He wasn't most people, he couldn't just walk by. Back in the waiting area, Noah had drawn something on the back of a flyer with a borrowed pen, a little stick girl with messy hair, lying on the ground, and a man with a cape kneeling beside her. Jake chuckled softly. "Is that me?" "Yeah," Noah said, proudly. "You're a hero." Jake glanced toward the hallway where the girl had been taken. For all he knew, her family could be searching for her right now. Or maybe, no one was. That thought settled deep in his chest like a weight. Somewhere in the hospital, a little girl was lying in a strange bed, alone, possibly scared, and definitely broken, by something Jake didn't yet understand. But something inside him knew. This wasn't the last time he would see her. Not by a long shot. Hours passed, but Jake didn't leave the hospital. He sat stiffly on the cold plastic bench outside the pediatric emergency ward, watching people come and go. His son, Noah, had dozed off with his head resting on Jake's lap, a napkin clutched in his hand, scribbled over with little sketches. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee, the hum of hospital machinery blending with the occasional overhead announcement. Jake kept glancing toward the double doors that led into the ward. No one had come out yet. Not a nurse, not a doctor. Just silence. Finally, the doors pushed open. A doctor in blue scrubs approached, her expression soft but serious. "You brought in the girl?" she asked. Jake stood carefully, so as not to wake Noah. "Yeah, we saw her outside. She's stable now," the doctor said, offering a tired smile. "Severely dehydrated, low blood sugar, but no signs of physical abuse. We gave her fluids, nutrition, and let her rest. She's been through something. Has anyone come for her?" Jake asked, eyes hopeful. The doctor shook her head. "No one. No ID. No missing child reports that match her description yet. She hasn't spoken a word." Jake felt a pang in his chest. "She hasn't said anything. Not a name. Not a single word." There was a pause. Then the doctor added, "Would you like to see her? Sometimes familiarity helps." Jake hesitated. "I'm not related to her." "You were the first person she saw when she woke up," the doctor said gently. "And she hasn't screamed. That's something." Inside the small room, the little girl sat propped up against a pillow. Her hair was slightly brushed, a fresh bandage on one elbow. She stared blankly at the TV mounted on the wall, where cartoons played with the volume low. She didn't even flinch when the door opened. Jake stepped in slowly, crouching near the end of the bed. "Hey there," he said softly. "I don't know if you remember me, but I'm the one who found you outside. My name's Jake, and my little boy, Noah, he's sleeping outside right now." Still, no response. Her eyes flicked toward him briefly, then back to the screen. Jake reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small, a toy car, blue with red stripes. "Noah said you could have this. It's his favorite, but he wants you to keep it." He placed the car gently on the blanket in front of her. A long silence followed. Just when Jake thought she wouldn't react, her small hand moved slowly. She picked up the car, looked at it with a strange sort of focus, then held it tightly to her chest. Jake exhaled. A tiny sign, but a sign nonetheless. "You don't have to say anything," he added. "But just know, you're safe now." He stood to leave, but then he heard it, a whisper so faint, he almost thought he imagined it. "Lena." Jake turned. She was still hugging the toy car, her eyes not meeting his. But her lips had moved again. "My name is Lena," she repeated, barely louder than before. Jake felt something tighten in his throat. "Hi, Lena," he said softly. That was all she said that day. But from that moment on, something shifted. Lena didn't talk much, but she started reacting to things, smiling faintly when Noah came in with his drawings, nodding when nurses asked if she was hungry, watching Jake with a certain quiet trust. Jake and Noah visited every afternoon that week. They brought coloring books, crackers, even a small stuffed bunny Noah had outgrown but insisted she needed more. The hospital staff began to smile when they saw Jake walk in. Still, no one came for Lena. No calls. No worried parents. No missing person report matching her name. It didn't make sense. A little girl like her, alone, silent, and vanishing into the background of a busy city. One evening, as Jake handed Lena a crayon set and helped adjust her blanket, there was a knock at the door. A tall, uniformed police officer stepped inside. "Mr. Jake Miller?" the man asked. Jake stood, nodding slowly. The officer looked toward Lena, then back at Jake. His voice lowered. "We have some information about the girl. We need to talk." Jake looked down at Lena, who had now curled up beside her stuffed bunny. She looked so small, so peaceful, and yet, the air had shifted. Something told him, whatever he was about to hear, would change everything. Jake never imagined a random hospital visit would change his life. When he first saw little Lena lying unconscious outside the hospital, he only acted on instinct, a single dad trying to do the right thing. But as the days passed and no one came forward for her, Lena slowly became more than just a stranger. She became a quiet part of his and Noah's world. The police investigation eventually revealed the shocking truth. Lena had been abandoned by relatives after losing her mother in a tragic accident. Her father, still untraceable, she had no family left, at least, not by blood. But sometimes, family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who cares, who stays. Jake was offered the chance to foster Lena temporarily. But after everything they had been through together, her small smiles, her silent trust, her whispered name, he didn't hesitate. With Noah holding one hand and Jake holding the other, Lena walked out of that hospital not as a lost little girl anymore, but as someone found, loved, safe. And though Jake didn't know the truth when he first helped her, he ended up discovering something far greater. That sometimes, fate chooses families in the most unexpected ways.